Hello, welcome back to my studio. Today we're going to look at more tips on how to loosen up your painting. Now recently I did a video about tip number 1, and that is use a bigger brush. And that proved quite popular with a lot of artists. And understandably, because one of the things that so many artists struggle with is simply converting to a bigger brush. Something like this for a small painting is quite a challenge. And it comes back to our whole way we've been brought up of painting fine lines in between the lines, coloring in, and all of those sort of things. All of those habits are hard to break very quickly. Getting a big brush into your painting is going to help you break those habits. So what are some other tips I can suggest? Second tip is use more paint. The biggest thing that is going to make a quick difference is to put more paint on that big brush. Don't just wet the bristles with a bit of oil paint or acrylic, whatever you're using. Really get paint on there. Scoop it up. Here you can see how I'm using thick paint. And really putting it on, really buttering it on is what I like to describe it as. Just imagine it's your favorite spread and you're putting it on your only slice of toast for that day. You're going to put it on nice and thick, aren't you? Well, do the same thing with your painting and you won't regret it. Now the other thing is, you've got that paint on. What are you going to do with it? So many beginners will blend that paint away. They'll just go over it and over it and over it. Now, yes, you may have to adjust that brush mark, of course. If it's too big, you're going to cut in. You're going to do something to adjust it. But hopefully that is just maybe one little tweak. If you pick up that paint and you know where you're going to put it and you've planned that brush stroke, and I mean planned it on the spur of the moment, you don't have to overthink it. Just, you know, you're going to put a lot of paint on there. There it goes. Boom, it's on. Maybe you need to just reduce the edge there a bit. Done. Leave it alone. Don't blend it away. So how much is enough paint? Well, how do you know that you've got enough paint on there? Well, first of all, I want to see a distinct difference between the shadow side and the light. Okay, so in the shadows, for example, under a tree, you're going to use thinner paint. Maybe it's more transparent as well. You don't want a lot of white paint in the shadow. You want blues and purples and red. You want color, right? Pretty much transparent and fairly thin. But next to that, where the light is cutting through, you want to really butter that paint on. You want to see a ridge going up into the light section. You also want to see texture. You want to see those bristles leaving marks on there. Then you've got a play between thick and thin, smooth and texture. That is what makes things happen. That gets the light to play differently over your painting. And you want to be able to stand maybe a meter or two away and clearly see the texture in that painting. You don't want to have to go right up close, put your nose to the painting and say, oh yes, it was a brush. This is not a printout. Okay, so you want to have a distinct brush mark and one that you've left alone and is visible to anyone who can enjoy your painting. Okay, now another tip I can give, and I speak to all of us because occasionally you do want to get stuck into something like this. Okay, but so many beginners get stuck into the 1 meter painting and they want to do it straight away, right? Big, bold, etc. Now, all right, if your thing is pouring paint and you've got to cover a lot of space quickly, then yes, you need a big canvas. But if you're painting with brushes and you're doing portraits, you're doing still lifes, landscapes, whatever it may be, to get a loose painting on a big canvas is really tough. What would have taken you 2 brush strokes on a small panel is going to take you 10 on a giant canvas. And pulling that off is really tough. You've got to adapt your style and your materials quite substantially, and you've got to bring a real attitude to a big painting. Otherwise, you're going to fall into the habits of, and the safety net of playing safe and over refining, and pretty much it's going to be a battle, and perhaps you'll abandon it. Now, I'm not saying don't paint big paintings. I'm just saying get your techniques and get your approach squared away with smaller work, and then take that approach to the bigger painting. And it can take some time, but you know what? If you can do a small painting with lots of generous brushwork and lots of paint, it's going to be so much more satisfying, whether it's to you, your friends and family, or a collector. You know, these sizes, I mean, this is an ideal size to do plenty really generous painted works on it. So this is what, a 10 by 12. Obviously you prime this up and you do your painting. This is a bit bigger, and I would say this is probably the maximum that I recommend for beginners to work with. Right, you can see basically double the size. So good sizes, and you can do so much with them. I've got one on the easel right now. All right, this little guy, and I've really enjoyed painting it. I could paint it quickly. I could put on some nice bit of texture and some good thick brushwork, and a real pleasure to create. And I can complete the painting, you know, maybe in an hour, maybe leave it overnight, finish it off the next day, hour and a half, working quickly. And that's another good tip as well, quick work. A huge painting, you're looking at weeks, maybe even months to complete. And so much can happen to distract you from that purpose. But a smaller painting like this, approached with some speed, some attitude, lots of paint, big brushes, you can do some really exciting, fun, loose paintings. And that's what you want in the end. So try out these tips, have a go with it, and don't worry about what anyone's going to think. Put your fears aside and any concerns about how it's going to turn out, and just think in the moment. Compose your painting and then go for it. Paint big brush strokes and keep going until you are happy with the end result. Right? You don't know what you're going to get, but it's going to be different, it's going to be interesting and exciting, and you would have made a big stride into a loose and fun Impressionist style of painting. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, make sure you don't miss the next video as well. So until then, cheers for now.